Hi, welcome to Build Enviro TV. Today we're here at Green Collect, where they reuse and repurpose office and construction furniture. Let's take a look. Darren, thank you for being part of Build Enviro TV.
Welcome to Green Collect, and it's a pleasure to be part of it. I'm one of the co-founders, so myself and Sally have been involved since early 2000s. Back in the 90s there was a term, triple bottom line, that was gaining momentum, and we certainly had that sort of passion for both environmental and social sustainability and social justice. So the opportunity came about exploring what a true triple bottom line business might look like. We looked at what is discarded in the city or through various waste streams that has a reuse or recycling probability. And the first product was actually cork. So cork from wine stops. So we started looking at where are they generated. It was obviously hospitality and corporate kitchens, and we spent a couple of months going around looking at the various kitchens, saying, would you be interested in a collection service? There was a value in the cork. There was an organisation that was purchasing the cork to make product. The original product that we collected the cork for was a flooring product, which they actually ground up the cork, mixed it with a resin, and created an ergonomic and environmentally sound flooring product. So we went from there, and what that highlighted was that we were able to engage people who experienced disadvantage through the collection, and that at the time was able to supplement the benefits that they were on. We then took that idea and went, well, what else is being discarded? What other sort of business services do we need to develop? Because that model didn't sustain a business per se, but it did sustain wages for the work. And so from that, we looked at what else is being discarded in the city, in the CBD in particular, but then it sort of started to evolve more closely to office environments. And that's where we started identifying mobile phones, printer cartridges as one of the first two sort of products that had some services, but not a lot. And then in around 2006, we identified that there were a lot of things being discarded, particularly as offices closed down. And the catalyst was in 2006, after a temporary office had been closed. Like, there was a big event happening in Melbourne at the time, and at the end of that event, there where the office was, we just happened to be doing a waste audit in the same building, and we noticed 1,200 bins being discarded one night. That as a good circular economy practitioner, I went and looked through the bins to see what was in it. Something caught my eye, and I identified that everything in this was reusable, that had just been cleared out of shelves from the office at end of lease, at end of their time. And so we jumped to it and went to our friends at Sustainably Victoria. We went to them and said, look, here's a need. There's a massive need in the built environment for groups. When they relocate, there's a lot of waste being generated that's not actually waste. So we got some funding for that model, and from that, this entity has grown into around collecting items that are hard to recycle or aren't through. Traditionally it was looking at recycling, but then we identified a lot of product has reuse potential, that things are being discarded at end of their use. Or it's more like it's not the end of their life, but it was the end of use for that particular entity, and we just started developing new systems and services to capture that product and the value, to look at, can we create reuse outlets for these products and items. So that's how it sort of evolved.
My name is Madison. I've been working at Green Collect for about 2 years. I work in the marketing and sales team, so helping organise a lot of the business sales and furniture sales, as well as helping communicate our message to the general population. Yeah, so on Tuesdays, we have our weekly donation sort where the team will go through all the clothing, IT, accessories, and bric and brac that have been donated either in store or in one of our recycling stations, and process them, look through them, and determine what is eligible for resale, what is eligible to be passed on to like a charity partner, or what we can either redistribute elsewhere.
So what happens, I notice you've got a lot of DVDs and videos here, so obviously there's not much that can be reused from that. What happens to them?
Yeah, we send a lot of them to a redistribution partner that works with people from like the criminal justice system and breaks down those VHS and DVD cassettes, tapes, all that sort of media, and uses that plastic for something else. So they'll find recycling outcomes for that plastic, reuse outcomes for that plastic, or just other uses. But we send it to a secondary partner to help us source that.
What is stopping businesses from reusing materials, let's say office chairs, office furniture? What do you think stops them from, what makes them just throw them in, like perfectly usable materials away to landfill?
Sometimes it's time. So they've come to the end of lease and hadn't thought about the what are we doing with these products at our end of lease or end of tenure, like if it's, say for example in construction, the cribs, it might be a temporary thing, like they might buy product in and then at the end they might try to channel elsewhere to other projects, but sometimes they don't. So I think one is time, one is lack of knowing what is possible, what is out there. And sometimes it's also that it's a poor design to begin with, so they don't last. So sometimes things are bought cheaply and they actually aren't built to last or even built to be repaired. Sometimes the other thing is cost. So particularly in our early days, looking at what's the comparative cost to process something in terms of assessing it, finding a new home and trying to find outlets, there's a lot of labour involved in that. And that costs a bit more than just dumping it to landfill. And landfill fees were quite cheap in the early days. That's changing slowly, but that's still a bit of a challenge that we have around simplicity, ease, convenience and cost.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of what you offer your clients, why do you think they go for what you offer? Is it sustainability driven, cost driven, time driven, bit of both, bit of a mix?
Yeah, look, we find that groups, when they hear the story, it actually resonates because we are creating and spending the time to find, circular outcomes. So we either find a reuse outlet for the product, or we will tear it down if it's not reusable into its materials and components and get those components recycled, or we remanufacture or repurpose some of the materials. And as a social enterprise, we also create employment for people experiencing disadvantage. So there is both the environmental and the social impacts that we create.
So would you say then, have you seen changes in the way that some of the corporates and the construction companies respond and the way they take on these responsibilities from when you first started out, or even before you first started out, in terms of how they address these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it has been driven by both the public expectation, but also government, where they've sort of actually imposed certain areas around ESG reporting or social procurement targets, particularly with infrastructure jobs that are state government driven. So as a social enterprise, we certainly acknowledge what the Victorian state government has done as being one of the world's first to introduce social procurement within any of their sort of work that they do and engage contractors to undertake. And that has actually meant a lot to the social enterprise sector around there is value in what we do. So when organisations are looking to procure a service or a product, there is now another lens to look at it through to say, well, we're getting that product, but we've also got the benefits of some kind of social impact outcome. In our case, it's employment created for people experiencing disadvantage, or the environmental around CO2 emissions saved, kilograms diverted from landfill, or tonnes diverted from landfill, embodied energy that's been avoided through the manufacture of new product. They're the sorts of things that we report back on, and that's something that we've noticed has changed in the last 20 years, that there is a lot more awareness and a lot more commitment to these things as governments and organisations recognise as a corporate citizen, how do we, what's our role in society, and how do we put value on that and our impact in terms of the work we do. Within that area, like when people think they've got to report on CO2 emissions, they are thinking direct emissions, usually like, is it vehicle, is it energy consumption, and those sorts of things. But every object that you purchase is made from something, usually natural materials, and there's a lot of embodied energy and CO2 emissions going into the manufacture of products. And then to discard them and send them to landfill, there's CO2 emissions associated with waste to landfill. So we tap into something that hasn't really been sort of thought of historically, around that there are interconnected impacts through purchasing and disposing and purchasing and disposing. So that's where we sort of report back on. You're able to avoid, so it's more so what you've avoided because you're procuring, pre-loved or second-hand items, and then by disposing it through us, you're avoiding CO2 emissions and waste to landfill, and contributing to the reuse. But it's really the next customer who can benefit and claim the emissions. But they're, it's all part of, intertwined around what they're contributing to, and that's interesting around the whole scope 1, 2 and 3 in terms of CO2 emissions. Where do these fit in? And so that's part of the stuff we're looking into.
In terms of, you talked about how you started with cork, and now we don't really use cork much anymore.
No.
And then moved into office furniture. What now in 2025, moving into 2026? What are some of the main areas that you are involved in reuse? What materials or what products are coming through the doors?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. We had identified. It was just before COVID, 2000, that we were talking with a number of groups around their defit for retail sites, and there was a lot of product, including furniture, that was being discarded, and they really didn't have identified a home for. And we went in and went, of course we can. And so part of the catalyst was, we identified what are the products in society that are being discarded, and the furniture was one of the things that there is a bit of a cycle where there's a refurbishment or a redesign or a move that is a catalyst for, we're not going to use that furniture anymore, we're going to purchase new or get some of it repurposed. So that was something that we identified, well, that within what our target is around activity, that's a huge one. And then everything gets assessed for its reuse potential. And if not, then what's it's made of, or can it be repurposed? So yeah, the evolution into furniture is more that there was a need, and in time, we'd like to think that some of the other products in offices are no longer going to be required, like document trays or folders. So they're two of the things that we do collect a lot of. For example, since we started collecting folders, it's on average about 50,000 folders a year we collect from offices cleaning out. The paperless office hasn't quite landed like that was promised 15, 20 years ago. And so they're the sorts of things that we'd like to see no longer being generated and discarded, but we're still seeing that at this stage. Yeah,
us
so
a
this year
snapshot?
we've collected over 2,500 tonnes of product, and that includes over 4,600 furniture items. And what we do through that process is then we're able to find sort of reuse outlets, and we've sold 2,600 of those products to customers, and the remainder we've given to other charity groups, and there's a small percentage that we've torn down and sent through recycling materials. So items that are damaged or can no longer be used, we do tear down. So these notebooks we make from redundant folders and letterhead and or paper that's been discarded from office environments. So yeah, this cardboard is actually a high quality card, and when we started finding folders as a high volume product, we were thinking this is good material, we need to find outlets. So this one was actually customised for our local council, but we have had groups buy customised, so they can be customised. So Westpac Bank, for example, is one of our customers who purchase each year these folders, and yeah, we think these are arguably the world's greatest notebook and most sustainable notebook. Creates employment for people experiencing disadvantage, and it's made from repurposed materials that we've collected and prepared here.
And I've noticed you've got some old Melways that you
Yep.
repurpose as well.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so and that's part of the fun fact here, where we get so many interesting things come through that we can bespoke the notebooks to include pages from Melways. So they're great gift ideas for people who either visit Melbourne or live in a certain street or suburb. We also get X-rays that we put over, and so there's just an interesting cover there. So there's a range, and I suppose a bit later we'll have a look at some of those ranges in terms of the customised and bespoke notebooks. They are available online, but also as good corporate gift ideas. So that's something that we've started doing with our corporate partners and customers around producing product for them and bespoking it for their need and or branding.
Yeah, that's really cool. And so you're a not-for-profit organisation.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how
Yeah,
that
so
all
Green
works.
Collect is set up as a not-for-profit social enterprise. We have endorsement from the ATO as a public benevolent institution for our impact in terms of social impact. So we're a registered charity, and but what we do is we try to trade to meet our social objectives, and so we're able to cover around 80% historically of operation expenses through trade, and then we work with other groups and supporters through philanthropy and foundations to fill the gap. Because it does, the activities we undertake and the people employment creation we do comes at a bit of a cost, and stats show through research that costs to operate, particularly work integrated social enterprises, is about 20% higher than traditional business, and that's sort of our information, and our stats show that as well. And so that's part of the challenge. I think we'd like to be self-sustainable, and we've certainly been working on ways to make our business self-reliant and 100% self-profitable. But over time we've realised that is actually quite a challenge, because it's what will the market bear, I guess, in terms of fee for service and that sort of thing.
And so tell us a bit more about some of the construction clients that you have and what that looks like. I know you have been doing some work with the likes of John Holland and Kane Construction, so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Look, we've done a lot of work with a couple of construction companies, and particularly some of the tier ones. For John Holland, for example, they have both purchased furniture for cribs and work sites, and then at the end of their tenure, when that job's completed, we've then collected that for repurposing and then resending it out to other clients. We've worked with North East Link, where we provided 300 chairs for some of their sites for that project. Lane O'Rourke is another organisation we've worked with, where we've collected from their cribs at their end of use, and we find reuse outlets for that. So, and cane constructions we're also looking at around sort of even refurbishing and or fitting out for new sites. So that's something that we're really interested in. So within the social enterprise and or circular economy, it's really important to go, there's no shortage of materials and products that people want to offload, but the challenge is to kind of get that narrative back to go, there is a value in these products and people need to purchase them for a circular economy to exist, that you need people at both ends of the supply chain to collect and purchase and be committed to. And we found that the quality of the products that we collect is quite high and certainly meets the requirements for offices, and particularly in construction, so the cribs and the site sheds, we could easily fill the needs there for your construction sites and jobs,
So we've got all of the IT and electrical goods that we have sorted and processed and either determined what is good for resale, what is good for repurposing, or what is going to be good to recycle for parts. So some of this is going to go to different recycling stations, or recycling partners, I should say, where we will break it down. They will help us determine the type of plastic that it is and take it from there.
I think part of Green Collect's model is to collaborate, and so partnerships is something that we're really interested in talking with people around what are the shared impacts and goals that we can create together. So whether that's projects to say, well, like let's include Green Collect in supply chain. So that's one of the things we're working with groups around, is to get into supply chains so that people may not have heard of Green Collect, but when they go through the organisation's process, Green Collect pops up as a place to purchase office goods. Or if they're doing a clean out, Green Collect's able to come in and collect those things. So, in terms of partnerships, we do have partnerships with philanthropy and government around creating impact and creating change. So that's one of the things that we do work with in multi-year trajectories around impact, and so that's part of that external funding to create the change that we do. But we're definitely interested in working with corporate, and be that construction, the tier 1s, tier 2s, architects and interior designers, etc., around how do you incorporate circular economy and repurposing and reuse in design. So that's part of it. We also offer training in circular economy, so looking at circular economy principles and practices and how does it apply to your workplace. And so there's a lot of different industries out there, and some go, well, I don't see how it's applicable, but it's applicable across the board around manufacturing, around construction, any service delivery. So there's ways of incorporating circular economy principles and practices in any workplace. So that's another thing that we do. That we got some funding, actually. We were the first, created the first accredited course in Introduction to Circular Economy and Principles for Circular Economy Separation for people that have experienced disadvantage, but it's now operating in TAFE. So it's an accredited course that TAFEs are delivering and incorporated as part of a lot of other courses. So looking at addressing circular economy across sectors. We created that module for TAFEs, and we can certainly deliver that for organisations as a staff training or how to embed it into your organisation. I suppose what Green Collect really aims to be is a model for change, or a way that society can operate around economically and socially in that impact. There's a theory now called donut economics that we've embraced, which is the circular economy fits within a donut economy that actually says no one gets left behind. So within the inner circle of the donut is the social fabric, and there's a whole lot of metrics that are already measured, and you're welcome to look them up. But it's basically saying no one gets left behind, everyone's included, and there's a whole lot of metrics there. The outer crust of the donut is the planetary boundaries, And so if we can live within the donut without exploiting people and letting, let people get left behind, and the planetary boundaries where we're operating in terms of, at the moment, extracting more than the Earth can hold, emitting more than the atmosphere can deal with, and that whole deforestation and overfishing, etc. So there's a massive impact that we're having as a global community, that if we can operate within the donut, that gives us everyone's able to thrive and survive. I often get inspired by our staff and their stories and their journey. And so moving into the future and looking at what does it look like for 2026 and beyond, it really is sort of looking at, well, we collect a lot of product and materials, and there's no shortage of those products and materials where people are offloading. We're now looking at how do we get others on board this to go, oh, actually, we're going to look at purchasing second-hand furniture before we buy new, partly because the quality is there and it's both economic and environmentally sound. So there are reasons why you would look at Green Collect or others for furniture to fit out. Or there's lots of other ideas and models that groups have undertaken, like the fit out in this building that we're in was purchased and built for purpose to have impact. And when we did the fit out, we actually used some of the products and materials that we sourced from some of the defit jobs that we did. So all the doors, the glass doors, were refurbished and incorporated into the design. And that was part of the challenge too, to say, well, what are some of the barriers to achieving impactful reuse for some products and materials? So we did learn firsthand that there's some challenges.
Yeah. And so into 2026 and beyond, you were also talking about moving into fit out of offices as well. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so because we're getting product, and I think the challenge is we need that product to go back out the door. So really working on the fit out, looking at offices, looking at cribs, looking at SMEs or be that doctors' surgeries or whatever it is, wherever there is a need for furniture, we're trying to tap into to reach and create that impact. Because, yeah, like I said, we get quality furniture and it is often designer furniture that is just the end of use or end of, it's written down, marked down from the previous owner. And so we get it, we clean it, refurbish it, make sure it functions as it should, and get out there. So yeah, refits and defits where we do a lot of, but we're really looking at that next outlet to go out there. So if you're looking for furniture, for projects or for your office, for a new office, yeah, we can help you out there for sure.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to be involved in what we're doing here at Build Enviro TV, and you have a sustainability initiative you want to showcase on our channel, get in touch at the links below. See you next time.